what is the problem that Bill C-18 is seeking to fix?
Well, I think the sort of overall problem is a real one, which is that the business model for journalism is just entirely broken. And, I got it probably about 12 years ago. I got into journalism just at the point where it was really breaking. And I kind of watched it go downward from there. And, the problem is that journalism used to subsist on advertisements. So you had a newspaper, it was full of ads, and then something like 85% of the newspaper's revenues were coming from those ads. The amount you paid to buy a newspaper or for your subscription was pretty small, actually, compared to what they were making otherwise. And sometime around the early 2000s, Google figured out how to make advertising a lot better. Facebook came along and tied it to your interests and what you were actually looking at online, and basically ate the lunch of everyone in journalism. So everything has sort of declined ever since then, and there's been a lot of different ways to try and fix that problem. I've worked at the Edmonton Journal, the National Post. I've watched all these different attempts at fixing this problem. None of them really worked. It seems like it is sort of an existential issue, and this bill is sort of coming in, putting all of the onus on those tech companies that innovated this new way of advertising, and making them basically subsidize news.
Yeah, so how does that work in the bill? Tell us about that.
It is something like a collective bargaining imperative for those tech companies. So the idea is, and I will just state up front that I'm a news reporter.
Right.
I go into these things objectively, but my livelihood depends on this bill. We started the Hub. It's a small place. We're not part of this process, so this is going to be really hard for us. So I may inject a little bit of personal opinion here, if you don't mind, and
No, no,
I'll
that
just tell
that's
you how we.
fine. And I'd like to as well. I mean, you're going to tell us about the bill, but also, inform our audience about other ways by which journalism is occurring. It's not all the death knell. Let's put it that way. So carry
Yeah.
on.
Well,
Yeah.
the funny thing for us is that we're actually the opposite situation, because we started off using Facebook to get our name out there. But the idea that this bill has is that when Facebook has news content on the platform, or when Google has Google News and all these links to news stories, they're stealing that content. They're using it without permission and without payment. So I started my career as a web desker at the Edmonton Journal, and my job was actually to post our content on to Facebook. I was complicit in the stealing of our own content at the time. So that premise, I think, is just wrong. What the government's trying to do is they're just trying to find a way to make this sound reasonable. They know that tech companies have a lot of money. They know that they were the ones basically responsible for this. It was sort of a feature of the free market, but it is actually what happened. So the idea is that the government is going to force these companies into a negotiation with news organizations. We don't know the full details yet because the bill hasn't passed, but the government will have some process for deciding which news organizations will be part of this. Could be an independent panel, it could be something else. But that is just another factor here that I think people should consider, that the
Right.
government will be deciding which of these organizations qualify for this. And then these negotiations will happen, or if they don't, the tech companies will just be paying per link, which is basically an uncapped expenditure for them. So you can see why they're a little hot about this.
Yeah, because and we got about a minute before break, but if you choose on your Facebook page to link to a news site, that's not a choice that Facebook has made; it's a choice you've made, and yet they'll
Yeah.
be financially responsible. Is that right?
Yeah, or you could just, as a news organization, hire people to post your links like crazy. And so there's a lot of ways this could be abused, and there's a lot of ways it doesn't quite make sense. I do think the government is trying to solve a real problem. I just don't think this is the right way to go about it.
Yeah, and we're going to take a little bit of a break with Stuart Thompson here. He's the editor-in-chief of the Hub. I do want to get into the structure of the bill a little bit, and also the structure of the news industry, because what Stuart is saying is that there's been such a violent change in it that it's creating, basically this crisis. So we'll be back after this break. Stay with us, and we'll be back.